Right, we're Sage Against the Machine. I'm Joshua.
I'm Isaac.
And we have a guest today. We're going to have her introduce herself.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I don't know. Where are we? My name is Christy Wallstorf.
Thank you very much for being here. And could you just tell us why you're on the show and what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Christy Wallstorf, and I am running for Chief Judge here at the Tribe. And I am an attorney. I've been practicing over 22 years. I'm a tribal member. I'm part of the Snipe clan, and I am here to discuss my candidacy and whatever else you gentlemen would like to chat about today.
Well, there's a lot of stuff to talk about lately. I mean, we've seen quite the uproar about the court lately. And I've noticed on your Facebook page that you've been openly talking about this, which I really appreciate, because a lot of times it seems like our community, even people who are running for office, they kind of shy away from that. And it's refreshing to see somebody who's willing to just, say, look, there are some, identified issues by the community, and I'm willing to talk about them. So is that something that you've always, is that the way you've always been?
Wow. So yeah, that's an excellent question. I have always been an advocate for people. And it's easy to advocate for people when I see that there's an injustice happening. And I think the best way to fight injustice is to be transparent. You have to shed light on the darkness. And so in the course of my career, whether it's been fighting the injustice of wrongful prosecutions, or it's the fighting about getting people out of prison when they've been wrongly incarcerated, or it's fighting to get lawfully filed paperwork that belongs to the public in the hands of the public, that is something that I fight for. And I've been really, really successful at it. In the course of my career, I used to keep a naughty list, and it was a list of officers who had disciplinary histories that the prosecutors did not like to tell us about. So
law enforcement.
I've
yes.
seen that on the internet a lot.
Oh, you and Josh are this is gonna be great for him.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would make a habit of asking for it, and if I didn't get it, then I would subpoena through public records the law enforcement agencies that I think had contact with my clients. And in the course of that, I got a very, very large drawer full of people in the naughty list. So I am used to people telling me no, and I am used to getting what I want by using the law to do the right thing for people.
So in what jurisdiction did you practice the most? And, that the naughty list, which jurisdiction did that come out of?
So I began my career as a public defender in Florida, and I had a naughty list in Florida. I practiced there for about 7 years, and then I moved to Texas. And in Texas, I also had a naughty list, and I was there for, another 7-ish, 8 years. I came back here to New York a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. I have an active bar license still I carry in Florida because I've got family members there. Okay. I keep it in Texas because I have family members there. And I, of course, am licensed here with an active bar license in New York State because I have family here. Mm-hmm. And so I came back a couple years ago, and I've been practicing up until about a little over a year ago. Okay. I actually came down with I got the cancer.
Oh no!
So yeah, and I'm fine now. Everything is great.
Good.
But that was, a fight that I wasn't expecting, but one that I beat. So
well, congratulations!
Yes.
Thank you.
That's the one you want to win.
It is. It is one. Yeah.
Fuck
Super
cancer.
important.
Yeah, it's prevalent.
I'm trying not to swear as much, but I think it's okay to do it on that one.
Yeah.
Right on.
So now. I find it interesting. It's pretty interesting that you practiced in Florida and Texas, which are notorious,
Notorious for bad cops.
Yes. And so did you come up against any sort of, intimidations or, anything like that while you were doing that? Now, this is just me being a law nerd and also I like to get into stuff. But I'm just curious about that myself.
You are making me so excited to talk about one of my favorite
I
stories.
love this.
I have a lot of favorite stories. Okay,
Yeah.
but this one's so good. So again, it was my naughty list, and I knew that this officer had a huge file. And the DA's office in Texas, what they were doing is they were making us defense attorneys, in order to obtain the bad information, the Brady material, they wanted us to sign a disclosure saying that I wouldn't share it with any other defense attorneys or anybody else besides the people working on the case.
That's absurd.
It is absurd, and it's illegal.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
It's unconstitutional.
Correct.
Yeah.
But because everybody there did what
And it's
everybody else
Texas.
told them, and it's Texas, and everybody wanted to keep their jobs and not be a rebel rouser, everybody just kind of went along to get along. Well, this is one of the expressions my dad taught me. I simply love this. What are they going to do? Take away my birthday? So I was like,
I mean, I imagine in Texas they try.
right? No. So it was on. So I refused to sign this document, and I demanded my information. And so what I did is I demanded that I filed an objection to the protective order that the judge was going to force me to sign. He said, fine, we'll have a hearing. So I went ahead and subpoenaed the district attorney for the entire division. And I was able to get his first district attorney to come to court. I agreed. I didn't need the biggest fish so long as the smaller fish was going to testify in his place. And so I was able to get him on the stand. And I was really used to a big courtroom. People would normally come in and watch me because it was always pretty much a spectacle, and I usually got what I wanted. And it was fun.
Yeah.
And so in this case, I got him up on the stand, and I was able to get him to admit under cross-examination that the only reason he wanted lawyers like me to sign that protective order was so that if I shared that information with another lawyer, that he could then put me in jail for violating it in contempt. Yeah. So that was his main goal. He wanted lawyers like me sitting in jail instead of telling all the other defense bars, hey, this is how this can help your case, which was absurd.
You would think those naughty lists would be like a website for that, with just all of them. You would think that we wouldn't need that. You would think that people who are given an extra trust, when that trust is broken, they should kind of be double.
That should be on Front Street.
Yeah.
I mean, it really should be.
Yeah, I don't understand this protection of who's watching the watchman, you know?
Right. And it's so difficult because in law enforcement, there are very, very, very good officers. And there are those that make the naughty list. But there's this blue line where they do not like to talk about each other or testify about the stuff that they know.
Sure.
And that made it really difficult because those lists were full of the officers who knew the information but were afraid to say it because of retaliation.
That means there's not good officers. That's what that means.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, and that's where I come down on it too, because, you know, me having worked at the court, I got to know a lot of the tribal PD. And, you know, I mean, I came to learn that, you know, there's one bad apple here and there. I don't demonize police after I kind of grew up and learned that, but I do also take kind of a harsh view on it where, look, if you're covering up for somebody who's bad, you know what I mean? You're not doing good in my eyes either. I understand the blue wall. I get it. It's just that's the way I look at it.
I was in a gang once too.
And on the other hand of that, though, I mean, these are people just like you and me. These
Sure.
are people who've got kids, who've got families, who've got wives. And it is a real fear. Retaliation is something that is pervasive. And for these people to be putting their lives on the line with somebody that they just ratted out, they might be the ones that aren't coming home the next day. So
Yeah.
it's a real problem. And I think it's going to take a community solution.
I like the way that you approach that is very open-minded and fair and just. You know, you're taking the humanity into it to say, like, yes, these officers should be, you know, sharing this and saying something about it. But it's true, they're humans. I totally get that. You softened me a little bit on it. You really have.
Well, as being a defense attorney, I think we get a bad rap. A lot of people just think that we do not like law enforcement. But I'll tell you what, I have learned from being in the court so often, when I walk into a courtroom and I need protection, who is there for me?
Right.
It is law enforcement. Those people, no matter what I say or do, are there for me. And so I have learned to really rely on them and to believe in them and have faith in them. There's been countless times I have asked for escorts out to my car at the end of a trial because some of my clients were cray-cray.
Right.
You know, so I really do have a soft spot when it comes to law enforcement. I will say that when I look at law enforcement outside of Indian country, my view is a little bit more tainted. When it comes to law enforcement here on our reservation with our people, like they start off above, you know.
Right.
So where outside Indian country, they're down here. Up here, these are my peeps.
Right. So have you had a chance to meet a lot of the officers for the tribal PD? And I mean, and not just there, because, you know, with the situation with the border and the way our territory is constructed, there's also amps out there. So have you had a chance to talk to law enforcement here on the territory?
Well, the problem is I'm not allowed to campaign on any tribal property. Right. So if I were to go to the police station, I would not be able to really effectively talk to them. So what I'm hoping to do is develop a dialogue. I have put it on my social media site that I am willing to work with law enforcement. And I think that part of the problem that our tribal court has right now is it seems to act in a vacuum. What I want to do is work with law enforcement and work with the tribal council and the community so we can come up with effective solutions that are going to serve everybody and not just individuals, because I think a lot of people out there think that today our court only works for a very few amount of people, and other people have lost faith in the court and they just don't even go there. So I think
I would rather go to Franklin County.
A lot of people told me that.
I've heard many people say that now. They would rather go to Franklin
Champagne's
County.
tough, but he's fair.
Judge Champagne, look, he is rad. He really is. I mean, like those forum meetings that I was talking about off the air, like me and him would sit together, you know, and it was almost like two bad kids, like nudging each other, like, you know, laughing and stuff. But like, I mean, but seriously, he's what you want in a jurist. You know, he really is. He's fair. He can be tough, sure. He really can. But he is fair. He follows the law. He doesn't expand. He doesn't go outside the scope of what he's allowed to do.
Right. And I think that that's what you want in a good judge. That's what I wanted when I was practicing. I wanted to be able to counsel my client and say, this is Judge, say Elvisor. This is what he likes. This is what he doesn't like. This argument of ours is strong. This argument of ours is weak. And I knew, though, at the end of every day when I was in front of him, I knew exactly what I was going to get. And it was going to be fairness. I might not like the result always, and my client might not be happy with the result, but we knew that we were going to be given an even playing ground. And I think that's what people are lacking here, in my opinion. I want to be the kind of judge where people can go in there and be like, all right, Christy's going to listen to us. We might not get what we want, but she's going to hear us and she's going to be respectful.
Well, when I started working at the court, and then, you know, as PJ began to train me more and more, there was a saying, and you know, he was the first one to tell me this, but I worked with, I don't even know how many lawyers over the years that I was at the court, and even after. But, you know, I've heard it said the best decision is one where both parties are pissed off. You know what I mean? And I know that, I mean, it's a little bit of a lighthearted thing for them to say, but, you know, it really is. Like, if you're, in my view, and I've seen, you know, I've talked to a lot of judges, it does seem to me like if you're really doing your job as the judiciary, right, you're going to be balanced. You're going to take things on the merits. And a lot of times, you know, people think that their case is just all of the winning points. And that's not usually the case. So, you know, I just think that that's something you know, I like to hear that too, because it's just, I think it's something that we're missing right now. And it sounds to me like you've been out in the community speaking with people. And so you've heard a number of the complaints about the court as it stands right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I have. But I think you might be surprised, though. I am, because I've been practicing so long. I do clearly believe that sometimes there is a clear winner and there is a clear loser.
No, I totally agree. No.
Okay.
It's just to me, it was a lighthearted thing, but I do think that,
a lot of stuff around here is disputes.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's less a clear cut of criminality.
Right.
That was kind of what you know what I mean? It was like, particularly on land disputes, it was like you're dealing with
Absolutely.
some records that are 100 years old.
Oh, for sure.
Some that
Something
are
like
falsified.
that.
Yeah, a lot that
And some people move that peg a lot.
Yes, those pins were.
And
moved.
somebody's cousin's mother's girlfriend's told them something.
Yes, I mean,
Right.
it's interesting.
Yeah. So no, I have been in the community quite a bit. Because again, we're limited as to what we can and can't do for campaigning.
Sure.
So I love just talking with people. And so I'm literally just going to every business and I'm introducing myself to the staff, whoever's working. I'm not bothering patrons. Of course, nobody wants some crazy lady to walk up while you're, eating your breakfast. But I'm just introducing myself because I know a lot of people out here are working for a living. They've got families, they've got friends, they've got people who do vote. And so I'm introducing myself, letting them know what I'm running for. And 9 times out of 10, it seems that people really do have a story to tell. And I have found in the course of my work, a lot of times people just want to be heard. And it seems like people are not being respected and their points of view are not being heard in this court. That's just what I'm hearing from the people I'm talking to.
I mean, that's been my experience personally.
Yeah, and
I'll go there.
Well, it's not too. It's like you're not out there trying to elicit any of this. It's just, and that's actually the way that it goes when discussions about the court come up. It's not even where somebody would be saying, look, I want to just complain about the chief judge. It's people will just come out with their own experiences, and because they feel that they weren't heard or that they were wronged, and in many cases they were wronged, but it's something. When it's organic like that, then I think you can see that there's an issue.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's one of the things that I want people to know about me, that I will be transparent, I will be fair, and I will be unbiased. And really, isn't that everybody's, kind of hope when they go into court? They just want a fair shake. They don't want it to be predetermined, right? They don't want the other guy on the other side of the table to get more time, more arguments, more evidence in. And a lot of times, a really good judge is kind of that backstop.
Yes.
Where they are able to say, okay, that's enough from this side. Let me hear from the other side. And we've talked a lot about how there are some practitioners that don't want to come practice in this court. I've heard that. But I've also talked to a lot of people who have been representing themselves in the court. And I've been surprised to hear that there have been, for instance, alternative sentencing. That is something that is in our code. It is an alternative to, some of these fines that we have. And it's basically like community service. I think because we are who we are, we can be really creative with it. And I was surprised to hear from the few people who went through the whole process that was never offered to them.
Yeah.
And I think that could be something that we could really use to be effective, to get the docket moving, to get cases going in and out quicker so that people can actually see the system working instead of being backlogged. And so I want to use our traditions a little bit more, use the code a little bit more, and just make it work more for the people.
So where do you come from? You're going to hear that. I'm sure that's the first thing you're going to hear from people.
It is. Who are your people? Who are your people?
That's how we do things.
Right.
It's a familial relationship with everything around here.
So my who I called my grandpa was actually my great-grandpa, Noah Garrow, and he was married to Bessie Barnhart Garrow. Bessie passed before I was able to meet her, but I spent a lot of time there. So I didn't live on the reservation, but I can say I kind of grew up on the reservation just because I spent so much time there at Grandpa's. The people who are alive today, I'm related to the McDonald family, McDuck, Jimmy McDuck,
Okay.
Jimmy's.
Everybody knows McDuck.
Everyone knows. I start off with, McDuck, right? So yeah, he's my uncle/cousin, and then of course there's all the McDuck family. I'm related to the Jacobs, related to the Whites. So
hey, we might be cousins.
probably. Yeah.
Uncle cousins, maybe.
Carl and Carol.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you related to the whites from Racket, like Donnie, Ronnie, and them?
Nope.
Okay. Mm-mm. All right.
Yeah.
Because, you know Dale, too, White.
Yes.
He's my cousin as well.
Oh,
yep.
No kidding.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Yes. In fact, Dale and I are alumni. We both went to the Pre-Law Summer Institute at New Mexico.
Okay.
Yes.
All
That's
right.
how we know each other.
So you've been around. So how do you get to Texas and Florida and all of that?
So I started in New Mexico. So I went to school there. That's where I got my my law degree, and I went there specifically to get my law degree. Well, it's called a certificate in Indian law. Mm-hmm. So it had always been my intention to practice Indian law. If you can believe it or not, for years I've been waiting for a position to open up here at the tribe. And so I got my certificate in Indian law, I got my law degree, and then I moved to Florida just because I wanted to be, I wanted to work in criminal, and I knew that if I did public defender work, I would get a lot of courtroom experience.
Yes.
1 year I did 24 trials.
Wow.
I was the trial dog. We had an award, and we would pass that around. So I was a trial dog more than once, but that year in particular, I did 24 trials.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. People don't realize. So over the course of my career, I put on my resume, I've tried over 125 cases. That just means I stopped counting at 125 of them, because
what's the point after that?
Exactly. There's no point in counting them after that. Yeah. So I call myself a trial attorney. And so from Florida, I went to Texas because I got a job offer, and it was paying me about twice as much as I was earning as a public defender. You can't say no to that.
Yeah.
I was a single mom at that point.
Yep.
And so I went and followed the money. And, it's too bad that kids today, a lot of us, we do have to leave the reservation, right? We have to leave the North Country because the jobs just aren't there.
Right.
The pay just isn't there.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people do come back home because that's where our heart is. In fact, Judge Garrow, she started off practicing in California.
Yep.
And she came back home here. And so we both have that in common. And one thing we don't have in common, however, she does not hold a New York State bar license. I think I was really, really surprised.
Shocking.
At that.
Yeah, from working at the court, I've known that for a long time. But yeah, I do think that it's, that is a little alarming, it's...
Well, here's the practical effect of that, right? So you have got a sitting judge who is literally passing judgment over you for violating sometimes a state law. She literally cannot go to the neighboring county and represent a client and practice that and defend against that state law, because she's not permitted to, because she doesn't have a bar license to do that. Yet she's going to sit in judgment of you when she can't even defend anybody on that. I find that shocking.
So do I, and I think that it's something that, I wish that the community knew more about. And, speaking of that, we off the air, you are also permitted to practice in federal court. And, obviously, a lot of times issues with our people and with other natives ends up in a federal court. So, that's also, that's also something that is positive in my view, that we have, that we would have a chief judge who could, argue in a federal court.
Absolutely, yes. So I practice Indian law. I represent the Hoopa Valley Nation in a lawsuit. So I really do have a great depth of experience. And I think a tempered judge needs that courtroom experience, because you can understand the point of view, one, of your client, and then you can understand the point of view basically of the law. When you make a law and you interpret the law, what does it mean to the community around you? So I think I bring a body of experience through my practice in the multiple states, in the federal court, in the state court, and that's something that I think that I'd be able to bring to the community, and it would be beneficial, I think, to have that on the bench, really.
Sure.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed, with when PJ was the chief judge, was there was a focus to remember, particularly on land disputes, to not lose that thing of, well, how did these land transactions used to occur, right? And to not toss that aside and just say, look, I understand that these procedures, these rules are here in order to settle land disputes. But personally, I think that it's a shame when you don't take into consideration the way that things used to be done, what was customary. They talk a lot in tribal law, tribal codes, our customs and traditions. Well, those are something that go along with land transactions. And I wonder if you would take that into consideration when you're, presiding over a case.
Absolutely. And in preparation, to speak with you and for the role, I've been reading over the codes. It's pretty important to know what they are. And that is literally in there to take into consideration our customs and our traditions. That would be part of my job. I can't just rule from the bench because I've got a gut feeling or because I think I want to rule a certain way or for a certain somebody. I have to take that into account, and I absolutely will. And there are circumstances where we're just not, for instance, in a land case, you might not always have a deed, right? Mm-hmm. You might not always have a survey, right? It might just be a bunch of your friends and family and community members coming in and giving evidence. And that's okay. Yeah. And you have to be open, I think, to receive that and actually call it evidence, because we're allowed to do that. And when you do that, you're going to get a better result. Like, people are going to be happier because people are going to feel like they've been part of the system. And that's how the code was created.
Yeah, like, it wouldn't be so much as everything is just being dictated to you. You actually truly feel heard, and the court would be accepting of, this, all of the evidence, and take that in for the totality of the case.
Absolutely. Yes. And I love that expression, the totality of circumstances. Yes. It's a very big legal term, right?
I am a writer.
So how long have you been back here, like, permanently?
Permanently, well, I came back about 2 years ago permanently, and then I got sick, so I was back and forth from Texas. I was going to MD Anderson for my treatment. Okay. So, and honestly, I mean, it's just hard to get really good health care up here.
Yeah. It's sparse.
Yeah, it is. And it was very good treatment. From the time of my diagnosis until my first surgery was 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. So I bit the bullet. I haven't worked since, but it was definitely worthwhile. But again, I was back and forth, and it made it really difficult. But it's so interesting just being away from home for me. Like, I never felt like I belonged anywhere else. I was there for a job. I was there for my kids, and I was able to earn a really good living for my family. But I never felt like I was home. And so since I've been back since those 2 years, the place that I'm in now, I'm just outside of Malone. I bought about 7 years ago, knowing that I was going to come back at some point permanently. Yeah. And I kept asking myself, it's like, what am I waiting for? And finally, I was like, I don't have to wait. Like, I'm a big girl. My kids are grown now. Just go home. And I did.
So what do your kids think? Where are your kids at?
They're both still in Texas. Oh. They're city kids. They do not like the country.
Yeah, I can't imagine going from city, Texas to
what city were you?
Cold.
Yeah.
What city did they grow up in?
We were in Galveston, which is just an hour south of Houston.
Okay.
Yeah, so hot and humid.
Yeah. Oh,
did you know that Houston is like the 4th largest city in the U.S.?
Yeah, it's crazy big. Yeah. It looks like a metropolis from far away.
It is a metropolis.
I've been to Galveston.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've been to.
I don't really leave the res.
Yeah, this guy. I've been all over.
You can't take him anywhere, can you?
I lived in a camper for a while.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and there's like a strip of land there near Galveston where.
The state park?
Yeah, it's like Crystal Beach. Yeah.
Yes.
And you can camp there because hurricanes keep destroying everything, so it's kind of become public land.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's uninsured houses on stilts out there.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's a nude beach at the end of there, right?
I didn't go to that part. I had my kids. Next trip, I'll go bring Isaac.
Nobody wants to see that. Nor do I want to do it.
The only time we saw naked people on our trip, they weren't the naked people you wanted to see.
Isn't that the way it usually plays out? I mean, at least in the movies and stuff.
Put that thing away, sir.
All right, we're going lowbrow now.
That was my bad. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. So how have you been enjoying being back to the res, to the North Country? What's that like for you?
Oh, it is. It's like breathing air again for the first time, and literally too, because the air is just so fresh and amazing here. It's it truly is a spiritual experience to be back home, especially just being in the South where it's so flat and the air is different, and honestly, the people are different. I didn't tell people that I was Mohawk when I was down south.
Really?
I literally did not tell people.
Yeah.
Not when I was in Florida and not when I was in Texas, because the racism was just so strong. And it feels nice to just be home and to be accepted and to just be back with just regular people again, right? Like,
yeah.
There's such a mindset. There truly is a mindset of the rat race. Like living in Texas and in Houston, you are living the rat race. You're competing with your neighbors, you know, you're competing at your job. You have to be the best at everything. And being the best actually does get you rewards, right?
Yeah.
Like I did really, really well when I was there. I had my pick of cases. I had my pick of offices. I had my pick of staff. And it got old. Like my last office, I literally was sitting overlooking the bay on one side of my office. On the other side, on the other window, I was looking over the ocean.
Okay.
And,
wow.
Yeah. And
you came back here.
And I came home because there's nothing like home.
Well, that really is. I think we've actually talked about this before, but I think that, non-natives, they don't necessarily, I don't even know if they believe us when we tell them, but there is this pull that we all have back to here. And I don't even know that it's the land itself. It's the people that's pulling you back,
Yeah.
So it's
like the elves, they just got to sail to Valinor.
Yeah.
But no, I believe you're right. Like I have felt it. It's like a magnetic pull. And I don't talk to a lot of people about that because I don't think people get it. But people back here, back home, we get it.
Yep.
Because we feel it. Because it's not a piece of clothing what we put on. It's not a piece of jewelry that we put on. It's who we are on the inside. It's how we're born. It's in our blood.
Yep.
I truly believe that. And I gave up a lot coming back here, the financial stuff.
I bet a lot more money down there.
A lot more money.
Oh, yeah.
The shopping, the shoes, the
warm weather.
The warm weather. But service is also really in my blood. Like I said, I went to school specifically so I could come back and serve my tribe. And I kind of look at it as if it's a contract, right? When I decided to go to school, I didn't think I was going to be able to afford it. I never considered going to college. And it was my uncle/cousin, Doodle, Gus McDonald. A lot of people knew Gus. He used to work in tribal administration. And I was talking to him about it. And he was like, the tribe will help you pay for school. And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And he's like, yeah, you can go to school. We'll make sure that you get through and you'll be fine. And I believed that, and I did it. And so then I went to undergrad, I went to college, and then I went on to law school. And a lot of people who went to school and they got money from the tribe will remember, or at least it used to be when I was in school, there was something that I had to sign, and it was an agreement. If you get the opportunity to come back home and serve, will you be willing to do that? And I, with my entire heart, every time I check that box, I truly believe that I'd be able to come back home and serve. And service is in my blood, like serving the underdogs, serving the public. Public service is really, really important to me. And that's also one reason why I have a soft spot in my heart for law enforcement, because ultimately their job is just to serve. And so if ever people think I'm harsh on our public servants, it's because, like you mentioned earlier, I really do think that we are held to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And I know we as attorneys, because we've got our code of ethic, we are held to a code of standard that's higher than just a regular person. And it's 24 hours a day.
Yep.
Like, I can't act a fool because there's certain things that I have to follow inside and outside of court. And I think as a public servant, we really have a responsibility to give back to our community in a way that is with integrity and transparency. And I'm really, really deeply committed to bringing that back to the tribe if I'm allowed to serve as the chief judge.
Well, I'd like to see all public servants with that state of mind.
Yeah.
So would I, right?
Cops are also given the legal right to kill other people. I mean, somehow are constantly afraid too for the job they signed up for. So, and that they're paid to do. So, like, I think everybody should be held to a much higher standard.
I think,
and when they screw up,
for sure.
and when they screw up, the punishment should be like a hammer.
Well, because we know better.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
When you go to law school, I mean, ethics is a part of the curriculum.
It is.
And so, I haven't done it yet, but that's something that I learned from working at the court with all of these attorneys, and it's true. The way that they conduct themselves, even when they're not on the bench or when they're not arguing a case, when they're doing it properly, they are conducting themselves in a manner every day that, you can tell they're holding themselves to a higher standard. And I don't ever think it's like to try to make people think that you're better than anybody. It's just, that's what you need to do, because you know what you're stepping into when you do this.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things too about, one of the things that was so interesting and alarming at the same time when I was at the last meeting, when we learned from the chief counsel that in response to the suspension that JOC had lodged against the current judge when she was walked out of the building, that she filed a lawsuit in response against JOC and against the tribe council and just a bunch of other people. And so the way that I look at that, right, it was a complaint, right? Mm-hmm. A complaint was filed. That's what JOC does. They're an oversight committee, judicial oversight committee. Yep. And as lawyers and judges, we have ethical duties and we have things that we're supposed to uphold. If I ever get a bar complaint against me, right, it's a complaint. There are certain rules that I have to follow. And if I get a complaint, it means they're going to look into me. I tell this story on my podcast, Coffee with Chrissy, that I've had a number of bar complaints lodged against me. It's basically an appeal by a defendant, right? Mm-hmm. So I represented a lot of criminal cases, a lot of criminal defendants. And this one case, also one of my favorite stories, the defendant, if we have time, so he was accused of being the dollar store robber.
Oh, okay.
And there was a rash of dollar store robberies all around. It landed in my lap. And
wasn't me.
No, right?
Wasn't me either.
Exactly. Well, no, it wasn't you two because he was caught on video.
Okay. Oh, okay. See, I wouldn't get caught on video.
Alleged. So there was somebody that fit his description caught on the video, right?
Yeah.
And he was running away from one of the dollar store robberies. And so my client ended up getting caught and charged with this. And he was facing like way over 100 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
It was a lot.
It's in Texas, right?
It was Texas, and he was black.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, they believe in freedom in Texas.
Always.
Get your guns.
Don't tread on me.
Oh, Lord. So he wanted to go to trial, and I was like, okay, we'll go to trial. I don't get to make that decision.
Nope.
My client gets to make that decision.
Yep.
So we went to trial, and there was video evidence of someone that fit his description running away. His wife testified that when she saw him minutes after the alleged robbery, he was all wet and sweaty as if he'd been running. And then when the police found him to arrest him, he was hiding under his kitchen sink. Exactly. So all this evidence against him, right? And we're looking at way over 100 years if he loses. Yeah. And we go to trial, and bless you, and we win.
Oh, wow.
Like he literally, I about fell out of him. I don't know how it happens.
Was that the most surprising, result you've ever had?
It was absolutely the most surprising result. I was just like a fairy, and I was floating on air in the courtroom.
That is cool.
Judge Alcott was having none of it because he was also on probation.
Oh.
Exactly. And so there's other things that you can violate even if you're found not guilty of the main crime. And so Judge Alcott, he gave him 8 years.
Wow.
No, I was fine. I was like, listen, dude, you were looking at over 125 years, and you're looking at 8 years. You're going to be out like in 5 or 6.
I mean, yeah,
Pat
but for
on the back.
Probation violation, that's pretty.
It was.
That's pretty heavy.
It was heavy for a probation violation, but then again, to the rest of the world, he was guilty of numerous armed robberies.
Okay.
So he filed a bar complaint against me, and I was just flabbergasted because I thought I did an amazing job for him, right? Like he was only going to be in there for a few years.
I would have loved to have been sitting in that court and watch people work on that.
People gasped. The bailiff was just, that's why I love bailiffs. They were just like, you pulled that one out of your nowhere.
Yeah.
And so I had to respond to this bar complaint, and that's part of my job.
Right.
I had to respond to this bar complaint twice. It was the only time I'd ever had to respond twice. And they take a lot of time, and they take a lot of effort, and then you have to wait. And you're being judged by somebody else, and you've got to respond to these things that may or may not be true. And the point is if I've done something wrong, I'm going to get disciplined for it. And no matter what it is, that's just part of the rule, right? Like I've got to face whatever sentence that's going to be. But I didn't file a lawsuit.
Right.
I didn't complain about it. I followed the process, and in the end, because I didn't do anything wrong, there was no finding against me, right? So that was the right result. But it shocks me how we have a sitting judge who, instead of just letting the process follow through, instead she just ran to the court that she presided over and filed a lawsuit. To me, that I just wouldn't do that.
Right.
From my experience is just let the system work. It's created to work in a certain way, and if you've done something wrong, well, then fix it. You know, there have been plenty of attorneys that I've known who have had a complaint sustained against them. And sometimes they take extra classes. Sometimes they'll take CLEs. Sometimes, you know, they've got to be suspended maybe for a month or two. But whatever it is, you can usually work on it. If your heart is true and you're still doing the work and you're willing to accept whatever it is that happened and grow from it, then you're going to be fine.
Right.
And that's how I kind of see things. You know what? There is nothing that I can't either overcome or learn from. And so that's kind of just my worldview, you know, no matter what happens.
Well, that's a refreshing take on it. I mean, particularly when, you know, because there wasn't much information coming out about what had happened. We all heard.
Just our rumors. Just the tea.
Right, exactly. I mean, like, I actually, as a journalist, I picked up that I started to work on it because we didn't know what was going on. So, you know, I mean, and then you hear this, and it's really disconcerting because, you know, one thing that I think about is, and as you correctly pointed out, you would go through the process. You know, you would accept what had come down. You know what standard you're held to. Doesn't it undermine the entire system if you file a lawsuit after, I'm guessing that the JOC properly did their job and all of the proper codes and laws are being followed? I mean, to me, it just seems to me like that's giving a message to the community that you yourself, that this current judge is not interested in upholding the structure itself.
Well, I can't speak to that, but I can say that it absolutely it doesn't pass the sniff test, right?
And I'm speaking for myself. I'm just saying my view on it.
And if I, as a judge, am doing something that is bringing disdain or not passing the sniff test of my actions, then I think that's the problem. Whether I file a lawsuit or my behavior is just such that people in the community are losing faith in the seat, then that in itself is just affecting the entire integrity of the system. And I think that's where the breakdown is. That's the problem. And that's why we have these rules. It's called the impropriety of circumstances, right? If I'm acting in such a way that I am bringing that discolor or that stain onto the entire office, then it's going on to the entire office. It's not just this one judge then that is wearing the stain. All of tribal court is suffering now because of the dirt that's been happening.
Right.
And I think I think a lot of people in that position might have just stepped away because they didn't want the court to suffer the consequences of that reputation and all of that suspicion. And that might have, maybe somebody else would have done that. I know that if I was in that position, I would certainly, one, work with the process, and then I would not do anything that would hurt the integrity of the court just because that's not in my makeup. I would back away first. Put my ego aside. Put my ego aside, right? Yeah. It's not about me.
Right.
It's about the system. It's about the community. It's about the members. And we call it black robe disease, right? There's a lot of judges that when they put on that robe, they think they are above the law. And we see this as practitioners. I've seen it all over the country, right? In every jurisdiction that I practice. And nobody is immune to it.
Sure.
But if you practice on this side of the bench like me, then you know what it's like to have a client standing in front of a judge knowing that they are about to potentially lose their entire livelihood or their lives. I think that brings a bit of humility to the cause, that if you have not practiced and you haven't held somebody's hand under the table while they are awaiting their fate for the rest of their lives. If you haven't looked a 19-year-old boy in the eyes like I have, a young black man, and said, if this goes badly, I've done my best for you, I believe in you, then I don't think that you can fully pass judgment on other people in an effective way. The very first case that I took to trial in a felony court was a 19-year-old black boy. And he was charged with several life felonies. In Florida, if you were to lose a life felony, there was no chance of parole. And I literally had to tell this 19-year-old boy, Terrell Jackson, who didn't have a mom, who didn't have a dad, who was literally just all alone, I had to say to him, listen, if you lose this, you will never leave prison. And he was like, Miss Chrissy, I didn't do it, and I believe in you. And we won that case. And when I say I've done 125 trials, and again, that's just the number that I stopped counting at, I've only lost, I think, 4 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize, too, that it's kind of standard practice for most people to take the deal. You know what I mean?
It is.
It
is.
It's actually kind of a problem, right?
Isn't it like 94% people... 94% or something take the deal, right?
It's really, really, really
it's
high.
It's in the single digits, right? Or I don't know. I know
it's high.
Yeah,
it's
very high.
And you have to really instill that amount of trust. And my clients, for whatever reason, trusted me a lot. And they had a lot of faith, in whoever they prayed to.
Well, that's the thing, and it's, I like, the way that you're explaining everything and telling all of us is... for a kid, 19, to put that amount of faith into you, and it's just, that tells me, that to me seems like somebody who can actually kind of garner that kind of trust, because you're expressing things in a way that, deserve the trust. And I think that's good for the community, to be able to give people that sense of comfort in the system again.
Thank you. Yeah, and that is something that I really strive to bring. I want people to have faith in the judicial system because I love the law. The law can be used as a tool for good, and the law can be used as a tool for bad. I want to be used as a tool for good, and I've been fortunate enough to receive this law degree and get all of this experience, and I truly just want to come back and pass it along. I think I can do it. I think I can do it effectively as well.
Yeah, I think you can too.
Especially right now.
Yeah, especially right now. Well, that's the thing is, sometimes you need someone to meet the moment. Right?
Yeah.
And right now, I think that the community is seeing we need somebody to meet the moment. And that's, what I mean? I mean, obviously, people are going to make their decision listening to this. But I think that, even just what we've already talked about here, I think that would, kind of elicit some confidence in, the system isn't completely broken. It can be fixed.
Right on. And you know what? I mean, a candidate can be a good fit at that time, but it's been almost 10 years, right? Maybe now it's just time for the change.
Right. Yeah.
Let's just move forward. Let's move forward together. Let's move forward and fix what we can fix and just make the rest better.
Yeah.
We can do it, right?
Sure can.
We're tough, strong people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I am. You two are.
I'm going to remember he said that when I haven't moved that dog couch from out of there with me.
Oh, here we go. Moving lumber. You got me one time. I couldn't just stand there and not help. We're kind of conditioned like that to, like if we see you help.
Well, of course.
I know he started moving in on purpose, so I would help him.
Yeah, I got to show him how strong I am.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of a tactic we women use all the time.
Yeah, right.
Especially married women, right? Like if there's something that I want my husband to do and he's just been ignoring me, what do? I'll go get out the hammer. I'll go get out the nails.
Yeah.
People are like, where are you going with that? You just mind your own business. Huh?
All right, I'm going.
Exactly.
Yep.
And you get it done, right?
Yeah.
It's a little
It does work.
It's a trick, ladies. It works.
Doesn't
It works
work on
every
me.
time.
It
No,
works on me.
what? It doesn't?
It works.
I believe in equality.
Gotcha.
I'm going to watch
Gotcha.
and tell her how to do it. I'm just kidding. That's hilarious.
You're using that tool wrong.
So you have a podcast. I've checked it
do.
out.
Oh, thank you.
Have some notes.
Thank you. Yeah.
How do you like, when you just started doing that on your own for fun?
I did. I literally started doing it on my own for fun because I like to rant and rave a lot,
Yeah.
and my family gets very tired of hearing it. And I like to talk about the law, and I really, at its base, at its core, I think that one, as a Native American and as a lawyer, I have such a unique perspective on the law that I like to share that with people. For instance, the whole P. Diddy thing. And in fact, you know what? The jury's being picked.
They're going through voir dire right now?
Yes, they've already done a whole week. They
Holy
started
crap, I
again
didn't know
today.
that.
Yeah, no, I heard it today. I'm all into it. I'm such a junkie.
I haven't paid too much attention to it, but I'm surprised.
It's going to be tough when everybody knows who that guy
It does
is.
seem quick.
Yeah.
So he was denied
must
his
think he's
motion
gonna
for
win.
continuance. No, the judge wasn't having it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Some
Yeah. they
intelligence agencies are on it.
Yeah. So when he first, and that's the thing, like I made it my practice because I practiced in the South for such a long time, and you don't get that up here as much because honestly, I mean, besides us Native Americans, and there's just no brown people up here, right?
In the North Country? Yeah.
Exactly.
We're not all that brown.
But yeah. So I would make it a habit to tell my clients when they wanted to go to trial, I'd be like, all right, I'll bring you to trial, but first you need to look in the mirror and you need to realize that you're brown. And when you're brown, you just don't get treated the same way as somebody similarly situated, which is a legal way of saying you're not going to get treated the same way as somebody who's white and rich.
Yeah.
Right?
Look at the statistics.
Exactly.
The data's
all you have to
undeniable.
do. It is undeniable. And so when P. Diddy, people were just freaking out over the fact that he was denied bail over and over. And people were shocked. And I was like, no, he's black. It doesn't matter how much money he has. He is not getting out of jail. So I'm really interested to see what happens with this trial. He's got a good defense team, I believe.
Yeah, he fired an attorney, right? And then began building his own.
Yes.
dream
Well,
team.
no. One of the attorneys left.
Oh, they left? I thought he fired him.
Oh, gee.
He might have fired another one, but I think the beginning of it, one left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see
It
play
will
out.
be,
That's
yeah.
going to be like my son's generation OJ case.
Kind of, right?
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah, it'll be really
This is going to be a
interesting.
spectacle.
It's going to be like when James Brown went to jail when we were kids.
Hey, man, James Brown is man.
Right. So that's the kind of thing that I get all jazzed up about. I really do enjoy talking about the inequalities in the legal system and how certain people are treated versus other people. And I love that. And I've actually had the honor of representing two people who were on the National Exoneration list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. One of them was my client in the first place, and she was caught with some drugs, and because of the sentencing the way it was, she was looking at a minimum of 50 or 60 years.
Jeez.
That's a lot of years.
She was black,
Yeah, of
and it was
course.
Texas,
Texas. Okay.
and it was crack cocaine. hold on to that.
The budget cocaine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, budget coke.
Yeah. And so so her first offer was 10 years, and she was like, Miss Chrissy, we're going to take it. And I was like, I really want to wait for that lab report. She's like, no, I knew what I was doing. She was like, oh, I was okay, Trina, we'll go ahead and do that. So we did. And through some miracle, the lab report kept moving through the system even after she went to prison. And also by some miracle, the lab report got mailed directly to me instead of going to the DA, which is ordinarily what happens to it. Yeah, it was just some higher power thing working on it.
That really,
And it wasn't crack.
Oh, no?
It was nothing.
Huh.
Yeah, it was like, it wasn't even identified as like baking soda.
Huh.
So, yeah.
So she got ripped off.
And oddly enough, this other guy that I ended up representing, the both of them.
They had the same plug.
Yes.
Holy
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was actually fortunate enough that he was out when it was discovered. She was still in prison. So I had to work to get her out of prison. Not only did I get her out of prison, but then we sued the state of Texas, and we were able to get a life-changing amount of compensation for her.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've got 2 clients that I've represented too.
All right.
The second client was unfortunate. The state denied our request for money. He was just happy to be out and on the list and be exonerated. Because at that point, everything went away.
So you get the blue lightsaber.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy though? There was a bad batch.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I just think about because...
Or a good batch.
I guess.
However you look at it.
Well, it seems to me like when you get and when you said that about practicing attorneys, I do think that we would be better served by having an attorney with long years of, practice in a court to actually have those chops, to make it sharp.
Yeah. And don't think that my criminal stories just are the funnest and the juiciest, but I've represented lots of people in property cases, probate cases, custody disputes, family law, matrimonial, some adoptions.
Yeah, it sounds like you've
I've
run the
done
gamut.
it all. Those are just not,
Well, people want to hear people
want
want to hear the juicy ones.
Yeah. Nobody's hiding under the cover ordinarily.
Yeah, we would hear about serial killers.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking.
I do have a story about that too.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Not a serial killer, but okay. So it was a tough lesson I had to learn really early on. So I was just bumped up to felony. I'd been doing misdemeanors for a year, and so my first felony client, I'm all hyped up because I love the law and I'm a nerd, and I go in there, and it's not a huge deal, and I go in there and we're talking to each other, and I was like, well, I'm your lawyer and I'm here to represent you. They found the body.
Huh.
He goes like this.
Uh-oh.
And he goes, they did? And I was like, stop right there. Do not tell me anything else. I was like, no. You are not charged with murder, and we are not here to discuss that right now. What a lesson.
Holy.
Don't joke.
Wow.
We never talked about it again, and I never
Oh, my
had
goodness.
to.
Yeah.
Interesting, right?
Right.
My clients and what they get up to.
Yeah. I've talked to defense
Or down
to. Yeah, I like that, the fighting for the underdog. And I think that's probably built into our DNA too, is, because
we're the underdogs.
Always been the underdog. And
except when we're conquering everybody else.
yeah, but I'm talking about after the Europeans washed ashore.
Right on. Yeah.
Those illegal boat people illegally migrated to our shores. They stole all our jobs.
You wet dogs, we should have thrown you out.
Right on.
Well, thanks you for coming.
Yes, thank you
being
very
so
much.
candid with us.
This was illuminating.
Yes,
Oh, you guys are so, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
I'm very appreciative of the two of you and for all the work that you do. And, your air quote journalism is not adequate and it's not fair.
Oh, no.
The work that you guys do is
I'm really
legit.
not here, but I'm actually a journalist.
I love it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you heard of the Freedom Press Foundation?
Yes. And you were also a writer for Indian Times. Yes.
Yeah, they published me because I was one of the ones that got arrested on Barnhart.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
As soon as we write those proposals, you might be independent internet journalist.
We've done some already, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much for coming on. This was great.
And good luck to it.
And good luck. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy your bingo.
I need it. Love my bingo.
Just remember, radio bingo every Tuesday, CKON.
Every Tuesday. Oh, yes, yes. In fact, one of my commercials is going to be coming out. I've got commercials.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, CKON. Those people are just magic.
I'll be making your commercial.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the way it works over there.
Thank you.
All right.
Give it to Josh.
Yeah.
Right on.
I make them all.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's done.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
maybe
No,
Buck
They
did
got
it.
Buck.
They got Buck.
Yeah,
it was
Buck did
Buck.
it.
I trained
Yes.
Buck. Damn it.
Yep.
Yeah, Buck did it.
They don't need me anymore.
Yeah, and it's going to air just before Radio Bingo tomorrow.
All right. That's
Oh,
the
nice.
perfect time to air it.
Yep. Sure is.
Yeah,
All right.
I didn't win today, so anyway. But you're right. I love bingo.
It happens.
Yeah, you got tomorrow night.
Yep.
Right on.
All right. We're Sage Against the Machine. I'm Joshua.
I'm Isaac.
Thanks for coming. Your name.
Christy Walsdorf for Chief Judge.
There we go.
Let's go.
All right.